Alan from Chattanooga, Tennessee, he writes in, he says, before the summer, when E3 got canceled, there was so much talk about how companies would be doing their own digital events because E3 was canceled, basically. He says, well, now it's August, and many of the companies have done just that. I was hoping to get your retrospective take on how effective these events have been. I personally could not keep up with all the shows and didn't watch many of them. And then he kind of runs through a list of like some of the stuff and whether or not he was into it or not. But basically, the main point is I was just curious if you think that this summer has proven that there is value to having an E3 to concentrate all of the gaming announcements, or if you think it kind of works the way we've been doing it.
For me, I think my big takeaway there is, and maybe this is just because I'm a writer, but I think it really highlights the value of editing, because when things are all happening during E3 week, I understand that companies don't like their game or their big announcement sharing the spotlight with other things. But I think that because of that situation, it really forced publishers to focus on the beats of theirs that are the most interesting, the most important, and then editing out the things that are sort of shrugs, right? Or waiting for later in the summer or a press release or something for those. Like, so in general, E3 sort of allowed the best to rise to the top. I felt like it was more concentrated, interesting content. I think the problem that we're facing with all these different events is now, with everyone feeling like with every publisher feeling like they have to do a digital event, for some publishers, multiple digital events over the course of the summer, I feel like there's a sense of bloat to those events that has me wondering, I'm almost a little resentful that they're wasting my time with some of it.
Wow. I think an interesting example of that for me, Joe, is the Cyberpunk Nightwire stuff. They've done two of those, and it's Cyberpunk. Like, I'm super excited about the game, and please show me more of it. I'm all on board. But those presentations have been, I don't know what, half an hour or something. But I don't feel like they've been like super meaty, interesting content. There's been a couple of things here and there, but if it were an E3 press conference, they would like come out guns blazing and showed you some awesome stuff. And this is just sort of like spread out. And I think because there was no E3, we're highlighting these things on a level that we wouldn't normally. So those Nightwire things were like, this must be a big thing. We're going to cover it.
I think that's true, but I also think that their audience is different. Like, I think the Night City Live or whatever the Cyberpunk thing is, like, I don't think those are for us. I don't think that those are for people like us who are especially plugged in to that game's development. Who've sat in on demos, who've read cover stories about it. I feel like those are for people who've heard about that Cyberpunk game and are excited for it and are tuning in to like learn more about it, maybe.
Yeah. And so then is the problem just on us as like our expectations of what this is going to be are off, or we're expecting something big because there was no E3?
I wasn't thinking of the Night City stuff specifically as much as I was like all of these different like Xbox and Sony events and things like that, right? Where those are the ones to me that feel the most like.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could use those as an example. There's been like 2 or 3 PlayStation ones and Xbox ones where if you took those like an accordion and just squashed them all together into one press conference, and like you said, edited out the stuff that was less interesting, I think you'd have an amazing E3 conference.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
I think from. Go by all means, Alex.
Okay, I'll quickly. I think for me, it's why I love, and bear with me, I'm pulling a lot of references out of video games here, but for me,
so Citizen Kane.
Yeah, exactly. What actually was Rosebud? This season has been very much why I like football or something like the World Cup compared to baseball, where it's very much when we had E3. It was that Super Bowl moment. It was that this is this set week that the hype is going to be absolutely unreal, whether earned or not. And like, this is this concentrated blast that is going to sustain us until fall. Whereas now it's this drip of information, like you said, that is, not the sexiest stuff that is focusing on maybe some games that wouldn't be on stage in E3, and I feel like it spaces it out so that hype can't be not only contained or maintained, but it's like, I don't know, like how many times have you guys watched something in this post E3 world and gone like, oh, like snap, like let's go, like, like have those like super hype moments, and I can maybe count one or two, maybe, and I think the best to have done it is the PlayStation 5 thing with Ratchet. I think Ratchet's the only time I've gone like, oh, like snap, seeing that game on the PS5. I loved what I saw from Halo, or and that, but like, I don't know, like I just miss those. I miss that hype, you know what I mean? And I just don't feel like this captures it. I get it from a developer standpoint. I bet they're loving it because they're getting sustained view counts. Like I bet, like, you go and look at those Night City wires, they're each probably in the millions, but it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, it's a good point. So next year, do you guys want this is a big question. Do you want E3 or do you want something like that? Do you even think that would happen? Because a lot of developers have had an opportunity to experience a year without E3. Are they going to keep doing it that way?
Give this to Dan.
Do I want to see E3 come back? Absolutely. I think despite this year, I think a lot of people are very disappointed with what they've seen from these presentations. And I think some of that has to do with COVID, to be honest with you. A lot of stuff probably fell out of these and was pushed back immensely due to the year being a wash, essentially. And I don't think that's going to distract these publishers and developers from digital events. I think that's going to be on their end. They're probably going to be able to show way more actionable results. And hey, it's all about big data, right? They can see this user and they can tie it to a purchase, even using all kinds of weird algorithms and fun stuff like that. They can say, hey, he watched, he bought the game, he pre-ordered, he did all this stuff. It goes down the algorithm pipe for the user, right? Instead of saying, well, we put on a good presentation. Oh, but we had a gaffe, and God knows how much that cost us. Geez, we probably shouldn't do that. We paid like $1 billion zillion to even be in this space in the first place. Why not control the message? We'll still have an Alex Stadnik moment. We can create hype. Believe me, they can create hype when they want to create hype, when they have something to create hype about. We've got essentially a year down the drain for everybody in every level. And that includes game development, right? Like this has shifted and just destroyed the pipeline for creating games and being able to highlight the best things about those games, right? So what we got this year, I don't think is indicative of what future digital delivery presentation will look like. I don't think we are ever going to go back to E3 physical space in the way that it once was. I just don't. I wish I did, because I love E3. I love the Christmas moment. Can the industry still provide a Christmas moment without that physical space? I think it's very possible. I think we've been very lucky to attend these kind of events, and we're so used to them. And not everybody, gets that. And now they can be at the event too, right? That's the hype line. Obviously, it's not the same thing, but we are going to be in a different world when we get out of this thing. And whether or not the companies have seen data-driven results from these presentations will dictate the future of game presentation.
Yeah.
The end. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Perfect. Yeah,
well, I think
I don't know.
I think there's another valid question in that, in the sense of whether or not E3 comes back by name, because I think before COVID, remember, E3 was struggling. People, like companies, were dropping out of it. There was some issue, like the ESA was not exactly doing a bang up job holding everyone together and like instilling confidence, leaking journalist information, all of that stuff, right? So
Yeah,
I guess,
not to interject, PlayStation wasn't going to show up this year anyway.
right.
Right. People don't put that in, factor that in. Like that's.
So I think ultimately I'm agreeing with Dan and Alex. I love that Christmas moment. I hope that there's a way to do it. Whether that is E3 as it has existed for the last 20 plus years, probably not. But yeah,
I mean, there were
a little bit more. Like, just to, I'll give it to you in just 1 sec, Ben. Like, it's just like, I think this year some of those reveals that would have been the Merry Christmas. Here's this amazing thing. Here's some nostalgia. Here's another game in this incredible series that you never thought was coming. I think that stuff got pushed, and because they needed stuff to fill space, games that normally wouldn't have been given that kind of billing did end up taking some of that, that noise. And I think people shouldn't expect that to be the road going forward once we have learned how to deal with the global crisis. And there you go, Ben.
I mean, all I was going to say is that there were benefits to E3 that had nothing to do with us. Like there were a lot of, marketing teams or buyers, or I know that there were indie teams that were pitching to people at E3. There were a lot of things that happened behind the closed doors of E3 and reasons for people to come together. So maybe something could pop up like that, but it would be different. But it's so unknown at this point. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what next year is like. I hope it's a little bit different than this year, but I think online streaming events will probably be a thing going forward as well.